There's also something gentle in letting small moments count again. A short drive without checking one more email. Finishing a conversation without glancing at the phone face down beside the plate. Letting your child see you arrive before you start performing the role of provider again. These moments may look too ordinary to matter, but ordinary is usually where a child decides what love feels like. They are not measuring your devotion by its complexity. In many cases, they are reading it through repetition, tone, and whether your presence feels divided or whole. Because sometimes the best thing you leave your kids is not security in the formal sense. Sometimes it's permission. Permission to succeed without disappearing into the job. Permission to care for people without turning care into self-erasure. Permission to believe that being reliable and being emotionally available do not have to be enemies. That kind of legacy does not fit neatly into estate planning language, but it settles deep. So maybe this is for the parent who has worked hard enough to be admired and is only now noticing the cost of being admirable in that particular way. This is for people who built the structure and then quietly wondered what spirit was living inside it. Your kids may remember what you gave them, yes. But they may remember even more clearly how it felt to be near you while you were giving it. And sometimes the richest thing a child carries into adulthood is not the money waiting for them later, but the steady human presence they got while you were still here. Picture a father leaving the office garage a little after midnight. The city is still lit, but in that thin, tired way it gets when most windows have already gone black. His hands stay on the steering wheel a few seconds longer after the engine starts. There's a message from home on the screen. Something ordinary, maybe about a school form or what time breakfast has to happen. He reads it, and instead of answering right away, he just sits there with the dashboard glow on his face. He has spent years trying to build a life his kids will never have to recover from. He has planned, saved, stayed late, made himself useful in every obvious way. But suddenly the question that lands isn't whether he has done enough financially. It's whether his children are learning that adulthood means always being tired, always being elsewhere, always coming home with only the leftovers of yourself. If you've been there, you're not strange. You might know someone who lives like this. This is what inheritance can look like before anyone calls it that. Not a dramatic failure. Just a quiet realization that what stays with children is often the emotional weather, not the speech you meant to give them later. And this is part of what makes the whole thing hard to talk about. A trust fund looks responsible, tangible, respectable. It lets a parent feel like love has been secured in a form the world recognizes. But a child may one day trade some of that money, without thinking twice, for one clear memory of being fully seen by a parent who wasn't split in half by pressure. Not because money doesn't matter. It does. But because money can protect a life while still not teaching someone how to live inside that life with steadiness, warmth, or self-trust. It can help to ask a different question than the one high achievers often ask themselves. Not how much can I leave them? But what feeling do they keep meeting when they meet me? Keep it simple and honest. Maybe the answer is calm. Maybe it's rush. Maybe it's love mixed with distance. This works because it turns inheritance from a future event into a present pattern. And once you can see the pattern, it gets easier to notice what your kids may be learning without anyone saying it out loud. It's 12:17 in the morning, and the office has already gone quiet. The inbox has stopped moving. Your phone is face down on the desk now, but your eyes are still on the dark window. The motion sensor lights shut off row by row behind you. The air conditioner keeps humming like it has no opinion about any of this. And for a second, what hits you isn't a crisis. It's something smaller, and somehow heavier. What exactly stays with a child when the big things are gone? What you may be feeling here is the difference between leaving money and leaving a way of being. And this is where that difference starts to matter more than people often admit. A trust fund can give your kids options. It can give them time, room, education, a softer landing. None of that is small. But the best thing you can leave them may not be money by itself. It may be the emotional shape they live inside because they watched you live inside it first. The way you handled pressure. The way you spoke when you were disappointed. The way love felt in the room when no one was performing. That kind of inheritance is quieter. But in many cases, it lasts longer than the account balance people spend so much time planning around. One common reason this matters is that children usually learn what safety feels like long before they understand what wealth means. They may not remember the numbers, the policies, or the planning meetings, but they often remember the atmosphere around you. If home felt tense every time work came up, or if success always arrived carrying exhaustion, that becomes part of what they absorb. So later, even with resources, they may still move through life feeling that stability always costs too much. Sometimes, it comes from the pressure parents carry without realizing how visible it is. A father may believe he is protecting the family by swallowing everything, staying late, and never letting the strain show in words. But children are often reading more than words. They notice the jaw tightening at the dinner table, the distant look during a school story, the way a parent is physically present but still somewhere else. So what gets passed down is not just provision, but a lesson that love looks like burden carried in silence. There's also a quieter reason underneath this. In a lot of families, money slowly becomes the cleanest way to express care because it feels measurable, dependable, and efficient. It is easier to say yes to tuition, the down payment, the emergency transfer, the extra help. It is harder to let your child see you apologizing, resting, changing your mind, or sitting with them without trying to solve anything. So over time, the family becomes well supported on paper, but emotionally harder to read, and the child grows up knowing how to receive help without always knowing how to feel close.